Okay. Okay, birth and family. I don't really have great titles for these, just warning. Andrew Mellon was born on March 24th, 1955. The parents of Thomas Mellon and Sarah Jane Negley Mellon. He was born in a bustling city in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His family was Irish that had settled in Pittsburgh like 50 years before he was born. His father was very, very poor, didn't have much to buy a house and stuff, but he was a businessman, judge, and lawyer, and a banker, and he got his most money from being a banker. His mother came from a very rich family, although she had no job because they weren't allowed to have jobs back then. And he was the fourth child out of the six they had, and although two died during pregnancy, so that they would guess he was only three siblings. So these are just pictures. Okay, so Andrew's first job was working at his father's bank that he had started in the he started working there in the 1970s. 1870s, oops. And he was all that 19 years old, but he really enjoyed working there and was very good at his position. So 8 years after he had started working, his father transferred the bank to him, and he changed the name to Mellon National Bank, so it was more nice.
Formal?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mellon Bank and Sons.
Yeah, so I guess
Team Mellon and Sons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
He, after, I think it was a couple months after he opened this one, he started a different bank called the Union Trust Company and Union Savings Bank of Pittsburgh. And although in the Civil War, about half of Pittsburgh's banks closed down because they were unsuccessful, his banks thrived in his leadership and power, so they didn't close down, and they actually thrived in that time. So this is a couple of his banks now, then back then. Okay, so Mellon believed in investing in companies. He was a big investor. He preferred to obviously invest in major companies such as the Gulf Oil and Aluminum Company of America. And then after investing in these and working as his job, gave him about $600 million, and that amount would be well over $9 million today. So he was really rich, and making him one of the richest men in the United States.
I think that might be $9 billion today.
Did I
It
say
says million, but yeah, but I'm pretty sure it's
yeah,
$9 billion
Yeah.
today.
Which is
Yeah.
a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money.
He was also appointed Secretary of Treasury in 1921 by President Warren G. Harding, and served as Secretary of Treasury for 11 years. He came up with a plan called the Mellon Plan. It reduced taxes on people as well, with wealthy, instituted higher tariffs, which is
Tariffs.
which means increases the cost of imported goods, which makes goods in the United States less expensive, and cut government spending. This plan helped the government get more money and then reduced debt, but this didn't quite work out, and the Depression kind of started, and he may have unintentionally started the Depression with his plan, so he helps the government, but also caused a lot more debt because of the Great Depression. And these are businesses.
I like the picture of the money.
Money, so.
A lot of money.
Okay, so in the 1980s, he fell into a serious relationship with Fannie Lamar Jones, but he broke up with her after learning she was suffering from tuberculosis. Tuberculosis. After the relationship, Andrew did not want to date a woman for a long time, but then he met Nora McMullen. They met on a train ride, like going around with a good friend. He fell in love with her, even though like he was twice her age.
Ooh.
She was only 19. He was in his like late 40s. And then he married her. Well, after 2 years of dating, in 1900 they married and they had a little girl, Alice. But Nora didn't really like living in Pittsburgh. She just didn't find it very nice, and she didn't like being in the marriage with him. And only a year after having a child, she had an affair with Alfred George Kerfley. But then they soon reconciled and then decided they were going to be together. And they had another kid, Paul, but that didn't really work out, and she continued her affair with Alfred George Kerfley. And then, so Nora wanted a divorce, but back in that time it was very like, not really popular, and it always caused a lot of drama. And so she didn't really want that, so they made a very quiet divorce, and many people didn't really even know about it. So these are a couple of his kids and Nora. Oh, and it's kind of interesting that Nora like didn't actually marry Alfred, but married some other guy. It's kind of weird. So Andrew Mellon was rich, but he wasn't like a selfish person, so he decided to donate to charities and art galleries. I think I spelled the sentence wrong, but when he was a boy, he loved art, and he became a very, very big avid art collector. He wanted to open a museum, but that's kind of hard. So he asked President Roosevelt, not Franklin, I mean, and took his donation of 126 paintings and 26 sculptures, and then a package of $30 million. And then he, with the help of his money, built the National Art Gallery in DC, and now the art gallery has 150,000 paintings, but it wouldn't be without him. He also donated to many other charities, but one of his bigger ones was donated to the University of Pittsburgh, and now will be renamed to the Carnegie Mellon University in his honor. So this is the art museum. And that's I think this is the university. Okay, death. Andrew Mellon died on August 26, 1937 at the age of 82 years old, which is very old for its time because life expectancy back then was only 47 years.
Wow.
In November of 1936, a year before he died, he was diagnosed with a cancer, an untreatable cancer at the time. They didn't know what it was or how to, there was no cure. And then his health started to quickly decline, and then in August he passed away. He was buried in the Trinity Episcopal Church Cemetery.
Episcopal.
Episcopal.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Upperville, Virginia. In his will, he left $180,000 to some of his employees, and then left his home and land to a charity organization. He was buried next to his children and his divorced wife, which was kind of weird, but and then after his death, there was a Andrew Mellon Memorial Fountain. It was designed by Sidney Wog and is located in the eastern tip of the Federal Triangle at the intersection of Pennsylvania Avenue, Constitution Avenue, and 6th Street in Washington, D.C. And was built as a tribute to Andrew Mellon for serving as Secretary of Treasury from 1921 to 1932 and Ambassador of Great Britain from 1932 to 1930. And then this is just some of his gravestones where it's located. And then here's a little small video that's kind of helpful.
The Mellon video.
Strapless bras never fit small chested women. You can also cut gaps, and the bra never stays up. He's a broad that you can actually count on.
He was one of the wealthiest men in America and is credited with bringing on the prosperity of the Roaring Twenties. Who was he? This business legend is brought to you by Mellon Co. International. Although Andrew Mellon was born into a wealthy Pittsburgh family, he took that wealth and multiplied it many times over. He played a crucial role in financing America's industrial boom. Through his Mellon Bank, he was a driving force behind Alcoa, Gulf Oil, Union Steel, and other industrial giants. By 1921, he was one of the richest men in America. He was especially active in the development of coal, coke, oil, and aluminum industries. President Warren G. Harding appointed him Secretary of the Treasury in 1921. Mellon is credited with bringing on the prosperity of the 1920s, and while he was in office, the government reduced its debt from World War I by $9 billion, and income tax rates were cut substantially. An avid art collector, Mellon donated many millions of dollars to various charities by the time of his death in 1937. Andrew Mellon, a business legend.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's it.
Is that your presentation?
Yeah.
Yay, nice job.